This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey, I'm David.
I am Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series. So in today's episode is a very special episode because it's the last of our season. Boo. But don't worry, we'll be back with a second season. We're just taking a little break because it's exhausting putting these podcasts out for you guys. So yes, and this episode is going to be about Ahmad and Chloe's wonderful engagement and them getting engaged, and kind of 5 things that you need to think about and consider before you enter into an engagement. Before that, we'll just let you know for the new listeners what this podcast is. So our podcast basically is aimed at helping men who feel that they want to be more in touch emotionally and express themselves better in terms of their dating life and their all-round life as well. Because a lot of the advice out there around dating and expression is very much, you need to be a different person, you need to act like somebody else. But we believe that you have all the natural kind of capabilities to express yourself and who you are without having to change who you are.
And I'm very excited for this episode. I mean, given what David just said, I think I'm a true testament to you know, what it takes to uncover and become oneself. And just, I can't say I'm like fully reached any particular point, but like I have arrived at a point where I'm engaged, and I'm very excited to have Chloe, my beautiful fiance, on the pod today. Chloe,
hey guys,
say hey. Yeah,
hey. I'm excited to be here. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for agreeing to come on. She wasn't even nervous. She was just like, yeah, sure, absolutely, we'll do this. And I think it's really beautiful that this being the last podcast of season 1, that the topic would be about our engagement. I know, David, you had this as an idea.
Yeah, I had this on the plan for a while.
Well, he said on the plan. He's prodded me about this particular episode or recording a particular episode, and it just happens that we've ended up doing it on the final one of the season, which is pretty cool. And so, yeah, we just wanted to share a bit about our journey from the point of view of like, well, you know, why did we get engaged and what it took to get us here. I don't think our journey was particularly standard.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, you know, traditional.
Nothing like any other journey I've had.
But then, and I was about to say though, like at the same time, I'm sure a lot of people would say the same about their relationships and how they came to be. Like I have one friend, he met his now wife, and he's got a kid as well, and he met his wife at a bus stop at 3 a.m. in the morning on his way home, and you know. That's a good story. Yeah, but it's not ours. So
no, it's not.
So yeah, we all have different experiences, and I think what I want to do is kick this off by just sharing a little bit about like why I chose to get engaged. And this may sound really random, but like for me, I really got to a stage in my life where I realized I had to follow my heart. Key word there, following my heart, in regards to relationships and life choices, and especially big life choices like getting engaged, going through the whole process as a guy to pick a ring, which, you know, I had no idea how.
Very well chosen, by the way.
Big shiny ring.
Shiny ring.
Thank you.
Very happy about
like
it.
literally, for any guy out there who's currently engaged knows what I'm talking about. Like just going through that process largely alone. Yeah, sure, your friends can help you and stuff, but as a dude that doesn't know much about diamonds and this and that, to go and seek something that's both nice and appreciated for someone else when you have little idea
about what to do.
Yeah, about any of those things, and to
and
put
even
it off.
getting the size right, like
Yeah,
it was perfect.
Yeah. But I don't want to ruin the story for anyone who's going out there. I'll let you find your own challenges along the way. But yeah, definitely for me at this stage of my life, and when I'd met Chloe, and just our experience of our relationship and how things were unfolding, and when I say this stage of my life, like grown to a certain point where I'd been in previous relationships that were good, and some weren't so great, some ended terribly, some just ended like, you know, on a mutual grounding, and to be in a place of like choosing powerfully to enter into another relationship with Chloe, and I will talk a bit more about that. And so for me, it was a huge decision, and also speaking openly, like just feeling all the pains of the past, of how things could go wrong, or what, how do I make the right choice? Like
All those
how do
old
I,
stories and beliefs.
yeah, a common question people would ask me actually would be like, is she the one? How do you know? Da 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 da. Like, how have you thought this through? And earlier, when people start asking me this question, I would not really have an answer for that, and I'd be like, I don't know. Like, how do I know? Like, I don't know. And then someone even said to me, "Is that how you pick your life partner?" I was like, again, I don't know. It's not like I do this every day. I'm like, it's not like I'm picking stocks. Like, I know how I do this. It's like. But like I said, so this is why I feel it's really important when I say I follow my heart. I learned to follow my heart, and I think we'll have to talk more about that on season 2. Yeah. And I think one of the coolest things, and I'll get Chloe to chime in on this, is very early on we discovered the power of like mutual agreements. I think is the best way to enter into something where we're both comfortable and we are expressing like what works for us, what doesn't work for us. So a lot of people don't know, when Chloe and I first met, we were just friends. We were just meeting as friends.
Long.
Yeah. We were just friends. And I'd met Chloe on a course that we'd both been studying, and she was seeing someone at the time, I was seeing someone, and it was like zero between us. We never really spoke of anything.
I thought you were cute, but yeah.
Yeah, you never told me. Yeah, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't.
It's not something I would say if I was in a relationship.
No.
To somebody else, hey, I found you cute, but I'm in a relationship.
I'm just saying I didn't know.
Well, you could have said it, if you really wanted to say it.
Actually, well, he came over the first week we met. Yeah, at the end of the course, you came over to me and
You approached her.
Yeah, he did.
What was his opener?
You're very pretty. And I was like, thanks, but
Direct.
I have a boyfriend. And then he was like, okay, I have a girlfriend too.
I hope she's not listening right now.
I don't think she is.
I don't remember this story. I don't remember this part of the story. But no, I do remember telling her that she was pretty and her telling me that she had a boyfriend. Her being Chloe, speaking in third person. But yeah, like other than that, like brief discussion, and you were like, I have a boyfriend.
No, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, even after when you were, like you had broken up and I was breaking up as well. And we met again once in Paris, one night in Paris, but there was absolutely nothing.
Is that a film?
Yeah. That one time in Paris, yeah.
No, it's it's the last tango in Paris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was visiting Paris and Chloe was there. We just, again, hung out, and your good friend Vanessa and your brother was there as well.
Yeah.
And again, it was like zero until Chloe came to London, and it turned out she was single. and I was single.
Things changed very rapidly.
Like, yeah, really quick. And that was quite interesting as an experience, as it really was, because we maintained, and going back to what we're saying about agreements, is like, I think, and this was largely driven by Chloe actually to begin with, but it was useful for both of us. And it was like, we didn't want to just jump out of like a previous relationship, and you still had like connections and ties and things to sort out,
bank accounts and shit like that.
Yeah. I was like, I was referring to that. Yeah,
I know that feeling.
Yeah,
I was in a transition phase.
Oh.
Yeah. So right from the beginning, though, it was like, I think boundaries is the word. When I say agreements, it's like Chloe made very clear, like, actually, while she really liked me, like you were like, you wanted to be free to.
Yeah, I broke up from a 2 years relationship, and it wasn't anything traumatic at all. Like, I actually decided to move away from that relationship because I followed my heart again. I just really felt like I needed some space.
Theme here.
Yeah, the theme, following your heart. I just really felt like I needed some space for myself to find myself. And I also really felt that there were things that I wanted to try, and that being in a relationship wasn't really allowing me to to explore these different aspects of myself. And one of those things was on a sexual level. So just really choosing to give myself the space and trying different things with different people. Man, I'm not into the other side. I haven't gone to the other side. But yeah, for me, it was trying different things with different partners and just really, I guess I noticed how I wasn't satisfied on a physical sexual level, and I felt like it was something very important for me to explore, and I was missing that from my relationship, actually. Yeah,
I think this is the first of our 5 things to consider, right? Agreements. Yeah, cool. Just to make that clear for the listeners.
Well, there is the why I chose to get engaged. There was that, so that could be one, and then this would be. There's like 4. So that the intro, like why I got engaged, is one point, but then there's like 4 key things that we discovered. Like for us, I say we discovered. I mean, this is how we experience things.
Yeah.
So me going through this explorative phase, sort of. When I met you and when we started to see each other, I made it very, very clear from the beginning that.
She did.
Yeah.
I was quite clear.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I really like you, but I just came out of a relationship. I'm a bit fizzy right now. I don't know really where I'm standing, and also I just really want to take that opportunity to give myself time and space to explore different things, and I actually started exploring with you.
How convenient.
How convenient. Yeah, no, but definitely.
So I want to come back to that in a bit, because we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to the journey of the relationship. But agreements was definitely one thing, like, from the start.
I think agreements are a really important thing, because I think a lot of the time people go into some form of like relationship type, and they go with assumptions of how things are going to be, and no one discusses like what are the actual agreements. It's something that I've been working with a lot in the last kind of year or so, is like setting what's agreed and what's not agreed, especially when you're in a form of something more open. It's like you have to have set agreements, because the old kind of monogamous agreements, they don't really work for you. So you have to have agreements that you both agree on, that you both want to abide by. And I feel it gives you a lot more kind of power in saying, this is what I want and this is what I want. And you can be in that instead of just living in assumptions, which I think a lot of people causes a lot of friction in the early days of most people's relationships.
Yeah, I actually seem to be going through an educational phase around that myself, because I was getting this sort of information as well, and I spoke to you a bit about it, Dave, and it was like this whole concept of like you're crossing a river with this person, and that person has stepped onto the first rock, and you choose to follow them and step onto that rock, and you choose to follow each other on this path and to hold each other on this path, of really discovering whether you really want to be together, rather than just jump in. And because of like, and why do people jump in? Emotions, feeling like loss or lack or fear of losing, abandonment, and all of these fears that make us go, oh shit, we need to do this right now. so
create safety, isn't it? It's creating safety.
I need a relationship.
Creating certainty.
But irrespective of whether it actually works. It's just like, for certainty's sake.
It's just to feel safe.
So then the other thing which I think follows really well with agreements is something else, which again, I'm kind of conveying back what, like, how do they say, retrospectively, looking back at these things. And the other key thing that followed on, this is the second point here, is happiness was our own making, and how we, because of the way we entered into our relationship, like, we always respected that I'm in charge of like making myself happy. She's in charge of making herself happy. We're not reliant on each other. There wasn't this kind of like instantaneous, like, oh, okay, now we're together. Now now you need to do this for me and I need to do that for you.
Yeah, now you're responsible for my happiness and I'm responsible for your happiness.
Exactly. Yeah. And it kind of set the tone, which being the way that I am, it really worked for me. Like, because it's like, okay, I get to just be me, and rather than going, okay, we need to do us. No,
Yeah.
we need to do ourselves. And in doing ourselves, like, that sounds wrong, but in doing ourselves, we
So you were both fucking yourselves.
yeah.
And then somehow you came to fuck each other.
Yes, it was a foundation of masturbation. That's a core principle.
Sounds like a Drake lyric.
I don't think Drake will take up that one. So that was a key thing, the happiness, not the foundation of masturbation.
I have a question, actually, kind of going back to the first point, if that's all right. Agreements.
Yeah.
What were your agreements? For the listeners.
That's interesting that you asked, because as Ahmad was talking, I had a few memories that popped up into my head where we
like Facebook. We care about
Facebook notification.
What happened 2 years ago?
Yeah. We care about your memories, Chloe. Here are some memories.
I think there's a very subjective side to agreements, but there's also a very pragmatic and practical side to them, and it is
Subjective.
It's all nice to have an agreement, but what is that agreement? Like, what are the articles stated into that agreement? What is considered to be a fault? Like, what are the freaking rules to this agreement? And like, we've had countless dinners or evenings sat at this kitchen table at Ahmad's place, and just really laying down like what I wanted and what he wanted, and one of those, and there was a possibility that we would come back to them and alter them and change as the relationship would evolve. But I think the first one was, I'm free, you're free, we like each other, this is nice, this is very nice, but I'm not looking to be in a relationship. And I think I'm mostly the one who stated that, and Ahmad was kind of like, oh, I don't know, I kind of wanted to have a relationship, that's more like what I was looking for. But he was very open, and he really gave me the space to have that time for myself, and he was very understanding. And even it gave him the opportunity to think about what he really wanted. Am I ready to jump into a relationship? Is that really what I want? So even I think I was clear, but even for you, Ahmad, like, it gave you some time and space to be with the idea and consider, like, actually, do I want this? What am I doing? And so we were non-monogamous for, I would say, a good 6 months. We were seeing each other very regularly. But that was the agreement originally. And then another rule came up.
They always do this. I think this is the thing, listeners. So when you do, like, start off, especially in a non-monogamous fashion, it's like you have an agreement and you start with it's like a version 0.1.
Yeah.
And then you work through it for a few weeks, and you realize, we need to add a new addendum to the agreements. Both people agree upon it, and you add something new in, and that's it's an evolving.
Because you don't know what the fuck you're doing, anyways. You just sort of like, oh, this is what I'd like. I don't know how this works, but let's try. And then if something bothers you, or if something bothers me, then let's have a chat about it.
Yeah.
So there was always this very, very, very extremely open communication, and that is amazing to have, and it solves a lot of problems.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
And actually, now that you mention that as well, I think that was also a key factor. Of the longevity.
Add it to the list.
Yeah. Well,
6 things you need to consider before getting engaged. Can you talk to each other?
We'll file it under agreements for now. It's but like, on a very basic level, even if you disagree, to be able to communicate as an agreement, and to have
that's very important.
To have that conversation.
And I think even like there was a point where you came up to me and you said, so I need to talk to you, and I was like,
those ominous words.
I was like, what happened?
Dum.
This was very nice. We had this whole day, like night and day together, and then at the end of the day, he's like, I need to talk to you, and Ahmad had kissed someone.
You scoundrel.
No, it was within the agreement. It was within the agreement.
And it was within the agreement, but he said, there was an emotion, he wasn't feeling comfortable with it, and even though it was within the agreement, you know, you didn't have to tell me that. We forgot to mention that rule.
Oh, it wasn't part of the agreement was not to.
No, there was no rule about like I don't
sharing.
Actually. I think I said you don't need to know about what I'm doing, and I don't need to know about what you're doing.
Okay.
I think I'm better off if I don't know, to be honest. But you came up and you're like, yeah. So I kissed someone, and I really don't feel good about this because I started seeing you, but I know this is within the agreement, and I got pissed. I got pissed.
That scoundrel.
And I said to him, well, look, like this is within the agreement, so I can't be angry at you really because you just kissed someone, and I have no right. I have absolutely no right to ask for any sort of explanation from you because this is part of what we decided. And so that was, I think, the first blow where I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm getting a bit emotionally involved here. And then you came up with this rule, Ahmed, where we would now tell each other if we did something with someone. And even before, I think there was like one day where you were going to go on a date with someone. And you decided that it would be nice if we told each other.
David, the recording's gone red on there. This is absolutely clicking there.
Dave is going into hysteria. But yeah, and I remember having a conversation where Ahmad gave me a call, and I was like, yes, what's going on? So we have decided now that we would tell each other before we would go on a date with someone where we would meet someone and there was a potential for something to happen. Because we all know that things not always happen on a date, but they can happen outside of a date.
At any time.
It's very spontaneous, this thing. And it was painful, and at the same time, it was very, very useful for both of us because, one, for you, the perpetrator.
The scoundrel.
it made you think. It made
I like
you
how I'm getting picked on here.
No, but it made you think before going on a date with someone. It made you ask yourself, why am I going on this date with this person? Do I really see something with this person? Why am I doing this? Am I just doing this because, my dick is hungry, or like, what is this? Or like, what am I getting out of this? And also, for me, it was like, okay.
So I've never heard the phrase.
My dick is hungry.
Put that on a t-shirt and sell that shit down the market.
My dick is hungry.
That would solve a lot of problems. What's up, you, bro? My dick is hungry.
Oh.
It's not sorry, bro.
So what happened last night? Oh man, my dick was hungry. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Officer. It's not my fault. My dick was hungry.
Why are you speeding, sir? Oh, God. Sorry, yeah, carry on. That was
A small interlude by the Dick is Hungry Corporation.
Hashtag dick hungry. Hungry dick.
Snacks for your dick. Yeah.
So as the relationship evolved, and the rules evolved as well, and so that was one of the rules, and that was a very painful one, very painful rule.
Did that one stay around for long?
I think.
What do you mean that one?
Did you keep the rule? Did you decide to remove that one?
The rule. I thought you meant the goal.
I think we did. No, but I think we did. We did.
I know David is loving this because during his time he was ringside. In fact, I think he was taking notes. Dave was watching me with very observant.
I was coaching on the sidelines.
Keen eye. Tackle, sir. Tackle. But they were interesting boundaries
times.
because it was like it really, as Chloe said, it really did force me to consider like not just what am I doing, but the reasons, because everything goes through it. Like if you're about to go on a date or you meet someone or whatever, and you know that you have a monogamous agreement, then then it does make one ponder before taking actions. But obviously, one has to remember their agreement.
And also, one is still free.
Yeah. One is still free.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, that was, I think, also because we started really getting along together and getting emotionally attached and all that, then that these roles really, they were actually very healthy. They were actually very, very healthy roles. And they were really outside the box because I never had such roles before. Like, I never had such agreements.
Yeah. Well, shout out to my hairdresser, Mark Anderson, who is also a tantric
yes,
teacher.
he's the one who suggested that role. Yeah,
if anyone's looking for a great haircut and advice on their tantric sex life, check out Mark Anderson and be sure to tell him my name because he'll give me a discount.
Not you.
He's worth a discount. So
Back to point 2.
Well, happiness is our own making. I think we've covered a bit about it, like, and it's largely inside of these agreements and also
Personal responsibility.
Yeah, and really seeing that, it wasn't for Chloe to give me entire emotional support. It was for me to derive for myself. I think, that for me is probably one of the biggest differences in our relationship is the development of my own, like, my own being, and understanding that is integral to the relationship, not just not actually something that needs to be surrendered in the relationship. So, we often talk about freedom, how men pursue freedom and stuff in a relationship. It's like, it's a great way to create that. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because I do know some of my friends who, when they met their now, like, wife and spouse and whatnot, they initially had, whether it was agreed or not, like they had some sort of structure where they were allowed to be free. And then they developed a relationship from that, as opposed to coming in with like, oh, these are the laws, and like you need to abide by these are the rules of the land. And the next point I think is really interesting is that we wanted to discuss was about like reconciling our cultural differences, and really, I mean, there's differences in like how we're brought up, and I was brought up. My parents were from Mauritius originally, Muslim religion. Chloe, your family, all over the world.
Yeah, I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
I'm white. I'm white Catholic. I'm from France.
So
but I grew up here and there. So yeah, it definitely gives me some openness. Towards cultures.
Yeah, and the thing is about that is like. So again, this is, I suppose, like insider knowledge here from me, insider trading. Insider knowledge is like of our dynamic is like, on one hand, it's like, oh, okay, well, you guys have different upbringings, and that's going to mean you got differences in how you live and what you think and stuff about life. But when you really look at that on a granular level, how different upbringings actually really warp your expectations of life and how reality is and values. So I think that's definitely been something for each of us. So the way we said it was reconcile these cultural differences, but actually really like being malleable. And not like, and so the other way to look at that, I say being malleable, the other way to look at it is not actually coming in with like people talk about nowadays a hard Brexit, it's like this is more like, you're coming into with like not necessarily like no expectations, no, but you're coming into it or no values or no this, but rather you're coming to expecting that there will be differences, and that's just to be expected, that the differences are to be expected, but also from the point of view that nothing that comes up do you deem to be something that's going to be catastrophic.
Deal breaker.
Yeah. Like I speak to, and I think this is a really interesting point because I was having a chat with an old friend recently, and I know he has a Muslim upbringing, but he has a different experience where he's born and raised in the UK. I believe, pretty much born and raised in the UK, and his work has him pretty much engaged with, like, he's with the media and this and that. So he's in a complete different sort of vibe, but his values around like how he wants to, how he sees his future relationships and kids and these things are largely unchanged from when he was young, and that's fair play.
Yeah,
yeah. And I was saying to him, well, if that's what you want, like, you'd be wise to seek out a woman who matches that. You'll be only creating frustrations for yourself if you live in a way where you want those things, and then if they're not present, they'll cause you mad frustration.
Yeah.
Then there's no point pursuing anyone that doesn't fit that sort of vibe.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Everyone, you need to be clear. Like, what are your expectations? That's, at least from my point of view, in terms of reconciling cultural differences, really about not just about my culture, because my family's pretty chill, right? But it's actually more about, well, what was there for me that wouldn't really run in a relationship where someone has a complete different cultural difference. And I think, especially when you start thinking into the future, how you would raise your children, I think that really highlights something.
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about that stuff very early on. Like, we've had many conversations about, you know, how being a Muslim affected you, or like, how did you grow up with it? And equally, I shared my experiences of, you know, what's it like to be a Catholic, and how I was raised, and how I decided to become a Christian, and now I don't know what I am. but not being scared of having such conversations, because at the end of the day, you know, sometimes we feel like these are a bit like sensitive topics that we don't really want to. We don't know how to approach them. But I think if you're considering a relationship with someone, you should definitely be able to talk about that, you know, like, you know, I remember asking Ahmed, like, so if we ever this was before you proposed to me, but, so if we were ever to be married, like, would you want to have a Muslim celebration or that kind of stuff? Like, what would you want? And even when we have kids, like, are they going to be Muslim, or like, what's your take on that? Because you don't want to find yourself you know, 10 years into this and not agreeing on something really, really basic that you believe in. So as much as these conversations can be tricky to have, you know, I would say really just bulldoze that shit. Just go through it, you know, have the chat. It's a bit like the elephant in the freaking room, you know, you need to talk about that.
And on that point, because I know sometimes people ask, like, when is it a good time to have these conversations? And we weren't having these conversations, like, you know, like straight away. So just to make it clear, we weren't going, so hey, how are you? So what about
how
kids?
Many kids? Yeah. How many kids?
But definitely there was a point where you feel that the vibe is good.
Yeah.
Well, the oven is hot enough.
It's ready for the
put the
biryani.
frozen fish fingers in, and they will cook in quick time, as opposed to if the oven is cold.
I always say as well, it's like, it doesn't have to be really heavy, the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I talk quite freely with general. But I'll talk quite freely about, like, my desire to have children. Like, I would like to have kids, and I might just be like, you know, this is what I envisage.
Yeah.
And that also is like a precursor for the question of, like, oh, do you want kids? How do you want it to be? Because you just tell the story of how you would like it to be, and it can be very light and fun, instead of, you know, you sit down at the table one day
awkwardly,
and you're having dinner, and then you turn to him and go, Ahmed, and he's like, yeah, do you want kids? Do you want your kids to be Muslim?
I need to talk to you.
And I think that's what happens sometimes, that people don't say anything for a long time, and they've been stewing on the questions, and then suddenly it's like it's a barrage, you know, you get like six solid heavy questions all at once, and that feels very difficult to deal with when it's coming at you, you know. And it's like, actually, if you have conversations quite lightly about it throughout, you know, I'd say once you start to think this is a serious relationship, you know, those are the sort of things you want to know. I'd say, you know, I think like things like kids and like knowing if someone wants children and wants a relationship are things you want to know pretty early on in terms of your dating.
Definitely. But as you said, you can speak about it lightly. That doesn't remove the seriousness of the topic.
Exactly.
And you know, I've had days where I've literally texted Ahmed, say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a few things. You know, and there's nothing like, oh, you fucked up or you did something wrong. It's just that I need to know certain things before I engage myself more into this relationship. Like, there's just things that I have questions, you know. We actually did a really beautiful exercise that, Dave, you gave to Ahmad, which was we sat down in front of a candle and facing each other, and then we had 50 questions that we had to ask each other. And
That's a really good idea. I don't remember.
I think it was an article.
There was
read.
something as well.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah. I remember that.
And do you know what? I got to know a lot of things about Ahmad during that interesting questionnaire. But equally, we had to answer the same question.
Yeah.
So equally, I had to, be vulnerable and give a lot of information. But yeah, I think if you just approach these things, it can be a serious conversation, but
yeah, totally.
You can just be vulnerable about it and be like, hey, I feel certain things for you, and I have questions, and I don't know where this is going, but could we have a conversation about
Sounds
kids?
like a new Drake album. I have questions.
I feel like though this really comes under the first agreement you had is like about being free.
Yeah.
Is that you both felt free. I've always felt free within your relationship to discuss whatever needs to be discussed.
Absolutely.
And there's no like, don't talk about that. You're not allowed to bring this up kind of thing. There's a freedom of like, we can discuss anything.
Yeah. I think I wasn't allowed to do that in my previous relationships.
Okay.
And that was a big, like, strong point. Like, I'm not going to compromise on this anymore because I've seen the how it fucks things up, really, because after 4 or 5 years of being in a relationship, you suddenly realize that you haven't been saying a whole bunch of stuff, and it's killing you inside. It's just eating you. And your only way out is to break things up, because now in front of you have a partner who's not used to you asking questions and objecting and having your own opinions. I guess that's me, because I've been quite submissive in previous relationships. But yeah, that was very important for me, at least.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were there any cultural differences that were frictionless? Is that a word?
That caused tension?
Yeah.
Frictionless.
You like that word?
No.
Frictionless.
I think that's in the dictionary.
Is that
somewhere.
frictionless or frictionness?
Frictionless.
Like Loch Ness's cousin. Frictionless.
Losing a pond around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't remember
No, I don't.
being any...
Friction.
I think also what's
Major
important to point out is that, Ahmad, even though you were brought up as a Muslim, you really carved your own path, and you don't really associate yourself to the whole religious practice of it. So even though you'll show up for Eid and you'll eat some laddus and and in a deep part of you, I know that it is important, and that's what you saw since you were born. And at the same time, you've questioned it, and you've created your own opinion about religion in general, not just, Islamic religion, but just all religions in general. And you've just really done your own thing here. So, and not everyone does that. So I think it's important to understand what's your cultural background and how important it is to you. And in choosing a partner, how well do they match these expectations, these values that you have, So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key, because, well, I say it's absolutely key, but at the same time, I'm just like, I can't help but think of I've got a good friend who he's very similar to me, but like he chose to have a more like religious wedding. And his wife is a lot more religious, and that works great for him as well. I think that's the thing, is like really knowing what you want, and then there's, I think as well, as I say that, really knowing what you want, there's always an element of that of life that you don't quite know, or you're still discovering, or you're still becoming, and so you want to set yourself up as best as possible, and being true to yourself is key, like in that. And I know a lot of people who get sucked into one vibe or the other. Yeah. And, it could, and like they're rebel without a cause. It's like, because then it's not about one is better than the other. It's just about what is true for you.
Yeah. What do you want?
And what works for you as well.
Yeah.
So cool. That's, thanks for that. That was a nice, I felt like she had her own little soliloquy. Monologue, yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool.
Point 4.
Yeah, just thinking of how to say it. I wanted to say it in a very poetic way and make the readers, make the listeners really ponder on
What's
this.
point 4?
So point 4 is like the journey of what we wanted in our relationship, and actually the reason I was just kind of summing it up is because we've spoken about a few different things, and there's some things we can enlighten a bit more. I think the key things that we've mentioned already is about the non-monogamous beginnings of the relationship. And for me, there was a lot of unexpectedness, but always the glue would have been the communication.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the willingness. We say agreements, but also the willingness to have agreements to actually pursue something beyond our own selves. And what I mean by that is because under the journey of our relationship, I've got like a few points: non-monogamous, and the next one is doing our own work. And I think that the way we began things with not no expectations, but again, like having certain boundaries, is the awareness of figuring our own shit out. Like what holds me back in committing, in loving, in surrendering.
This would be kind of like self-development work.
Well,
for the listeners that don't know doing the
I say, yeah. So it would be, I say self-development, but I think it's also something that you have to arrive at. It's not something you can go, okay, I'm going to go do a course. I'm going to go do a course in this and figure that you might learn some things, but the true test of thing is to first become aware that there are pattern behaviors, emotions, things that make us feel scared. Yeah. I forget what I said earlier, and David like physically had a moment of like, it was very quick, a micro expression, but I'm very good at catching those. When I'm talking, this
was before the episode
started. Yeah, in the preamble, and it
was like lightning that struck.
Yeah, and it was something about
fear in his eyes.
But getting to the thing is, the reason why I spot all these things is because I recognize them in my own self, and like where I've been fearful of commitment, and for what reason, and what holds me back, and what drives me to pursue anything. And I think, like same for you, Chloe. Like you, in one way, you say you had the freedom to explore, but also you had the freedom to experience your own emotions without having to worry about someone else's judgment on that experience. You're painting the painting blue, and just because you want to.
That's a really key part, though, isn't it? That you're able to experience without judgment. Yeah, so I think that's something that doesn't happen in a lot of relationships, and we fear is that our partner's going to judge us for everything we do or judge us badly, and it really limits your ability to kind of communicate what you're really feeling or what you want, or just express yourself in the way that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there something you want to say about that for yourself, like around doing your own work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, part of going into that non-monogamous agreement was a big part of the work that I did on myself. Like coming to understand my own demons about sex, relationships, love.
Sex demon.
Sex demon.
Big up all those people who have watched the video about the oral sex demon.
The oral sex demon. Yeah. Daddy issues, just like I really diving into that and understanding, because when you're in a relationship, you only have one dimension and you can only observe yourself in particular sets of situations. Whereas when you are single, but not just single, but you allow yourself to have fun and discover and explore and have different partners and all that, it comes with a whole other set of interesting things, like, reactions to partners, or awkwardness, or feeling intimidated, or sometimes feeling unsafe. And just like constantly questioning myself, why the fuck am I doing this? This is difficult. This is, it's painful. Like, I remember during our agreement, I had a date with someone, and I went on and had sex with them. And the whole time, the only person I could think of was Ahmad. And it was a horrible night for me.
Horrible thinking about Ahmad.
No. It was a horrible night. I was just torn, like, emotionally, physically. It's almost like I went on and had sex with someone, and that it hurt me. Like I hurt myself. I didn't really want to have sex with this person, and I don't know why I did it. And I felt really, really bad. I felt guilty towards Ahmed, even though we were in this agreement. But I also felt like I betrayed myself.
Wow.
And because I didn't really want to do it, and I still went on and did it, and felt shit after that.
Yeah.
And so that was a big one. And then, because we had this agreement of telling each other, I had to go and tell him.
Oh, yeah.
I had to go and tell him. And it was so painful because I was embarrassed by my behavior. I was fearful of him saying, you know what? Fuck this. This is not for me. This is not working. This is very painful. I don't want to see you again. And there was that risk. And so coming to understand my own behaviors, but also, sort of like solving conflict, like straight on, and being an adult about it, and accepting my faults or my responsibilities, and just being vulnerable about it. Like, look, I fucked up. I feel so bad about this. I don't know what to say except that. But this was key because it really made me realize that actually this whole non-monogamous thing is not really working for me. And I've got something really nice here with someone. And why do I keep insisting on wanting to fuck around? It's not doing anything for me. I don't feel like it's but hey, I had to go through that. So that was my own personal journey. And also, I don't want to like ramble on, but coming to terms with my own traumas, like from previous relationships where, Ahmed would say one little thing and I would just instantly get triggered and get into 10 years ago when this shit happened, and not knowing how to come out of that, but just doing the work on myself. And also sharing, always sharing with Ahmed what is going through to me, what am I experiencing.
I think the one thing that really stand out there is, like, I went to a talk at the House of Togetherness a few months back, and one of the things was that if you do get into kind of non-monogamous relationships, it brings out your issues much faster than a monogamous relationship.
My God, yes.
And you have to deal with your own, your self-worth, your value, you hold for yourself, your self-esteem. All those things come up more often and faster, which in a way strengthens you because you have to deal with it more often, and you start to actually deal with them instead of just tucking them under the carpet.
Yeah, and like for us, from everything that we experienced, like there was a whole, not necessarily like dramatic or tumultuous, but just internally doing our own work and understanding ourselves and communicating with each other, that I would call like the periods of the up and down. Well, denoted
that
by,
chapter in your biography.
in the era of the up and down. But yeah, like as Dave eloquently put there about how we can often bring people closer together, like that's essentially for us, like we really saw how we appreciated what we had, and the communication that we had and how nice it was. And so that's, when things all it became obvious, like in terms of me, like us going back to what I said at the beginning, like the stage I was at in my life, feeling like, the word settling down, I don't necessarily use per se, but it describes the situation well, right? It's like you choose to settle down. But actually to choose to be in a partnership, in a committed partnership, in a monogamous partnership, because it was like seeing this is the person that I would be with, spending time with, and like, can I trust them? What have we been through? All of these questions have been answered as adaptability, how we dealt with stressful or conflict situations.
Absolutely. That was
it's a very important thing.
Big telling. For me, I was like, wow, I've never been able to speak so openly about what's going on for me, and conflicting, conversations that they were not easy to have, but they were had. And just the fact that you were open to that for me was like a huge thing.
I think it's something people don't always realize, that one of the most important things, I read this somewhere and I don't remember where, it might be Mark Manson in one of his books. He talks about one of the most important things you want to consider before getting into a relationship with someone is how do they deal with conflict?
Oh yeah, it's him.
It is him?
Yeah.
And he talks about basically that we all have to deal with conflict in life. So you want to be with someone who actually is willing to deal with the conflict over someone who just hides from conflict constantly.
Yeah.
So that has been a very detailed explanation of the last 2 years of my life, pretty much, with Chloe, and how we came to be engaged. The decisions, the ups, the downs, the dramas, the agreements, the taking of personal responsibility. Wow. I mean, it's been, for me, looking back, and even with this podcast as well, because I started this podcast like roughly around the time just after I met you.
Yeah.
And it's like, in alignment with everything that the podcast stands for, regarding to authenticity.
It's interesting, yeah.
Vulnerability. Well, you say it's interesting, but it's like obviously everything's driven by, David and I, we tend to just do what we think is the right thing to do, and with what we're aligned with, and hence why we created this podcast with the particular title, because this is what it's about. Like whenever we tell people, we explain this is what it's about. So yeah, even just going through everything here today, it really does, I'll say, personify what the podcast is about. So I think it's very beautiful. I don't think there's much more for me to say on this. But
I think there might be one question the listeners might want to know. So how did you pop the old question?
Well, tune in to season 2, where you will see drone pictures. No, so actually it happened earlier this year, 2019, and Chloe had organised a whole, was it? How long ago?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. For some reason, 5 weeks is coming to mind. It
felt so long.
Yeah, it was
nice.
a proper adventure. But a really cool adventure across the Yucatan area of Mexico. We landed in Cancun and immediately took a 2-hour drive to Iztapalapa. And then we basically went around the coast and we ended up in Tulum, which wasn't on the agenda, but it was like on the way back from Bacalar where we were staying.
It's funny. I thought I'll give Ahmad the last 4 days where there's no plan and he can decide what he wants to do.
And I made a bad choice. I should have gone Playa del Carmen. It would have been ideal. I can't remember. I think actually no. Again, we sort of like.
I think you asked me about Tulum.
We meditated on it and we got Tulum over Playa del Carmen actually in the end. So we kind of chose together in the end. But yeah. So the way it all unfolded was, and this is a bit of a crazy story because there's a bit of like universal woo woo involved. So we'd gone to Coba. And we climbed this one of the old temples Mayan temples that like one of the last remaining few that you're allowed to climb now in Mexico. And while I was up there, I was like, okay, towards the end of the trip now, I've been carrying an engagement ring in this slimline wallet that I
heavy ring.
Yeah, and like the whole time, and it's like this one of these card wallets that holds some cash and my cards. And the whole time it'd been in there every day checking it for 2 weeks. And so towards the end of the trip, we're like, okay, am I going to do this? Am I not? So I said to the universe, it's the last couple of days now. It's either tonight or tomorrow, and that's it. So I was like, yeah, if it's tonight, tell me a sign. Because you know me, if it's tomorrow, I'll leave it till tomorrow. Mañana. Nothing like the need to get to the airport to motivate someone to complete the task. But no, in this case, I was like, yeah, so if it's today, give me a sign. And we leave Coba, we go back to Tulum, and we go pick up our dry cleaning. And the lady who was serving us had this bronze pen. And sitting on top of the pen was a huge fucking solitaire diamond in a 4-clasp claw. And
made of like glass.
Made of glass.
Yeah,
made of plastic
glass.
even.
It looked like a diamond.
But I was just like, I even took a picture of it. So maybe I'll post it somewhere.
Yeah.
I took a picture of it, and Chloe was like, why are you taking a picture of that? But to me, I was like, who in Mexico is making this pen? In the world? For what reason You know, are they making this pen?
Shitty laundry
Yeah.
shop
That's
out there in the street.
Just casual, you know, not like some fucking 5-star diamond.
Yeah.
There's their name or something. No, I was like, who in the world? It was just it was too wild. And so then that was it. You know, I was like, oh, this is a sign. I'd ask for one clear sign. I didn't want no ambiguous sign. A sign that I could show to anyone, and they'd just be like, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a sign.
Yeah. I've showed this picture on my phone to different people, and they've always been like, yeah.
That was a sign.
Clear sign. None of this like, oh, kind of.
I saw some stars twinkling. That's the sign.
They had the shape of a diamond.
Yeah. The Krispy Kreme sign was on. Yeah. So that night we went to a lovely restaurant. It was a Mexican sushi fusion, and we love sushi, so that was beautiful.
Yeah.
We love Mexico.
And we've been eating Mexican food for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So that was really nice. Highly recommend the tuna tostadas. They were very, very delicious.
Yeah, very good.
A slice of tuna sashimi on a tostada. Yeah, beautiful.
Some nice cocktails.
And then we went to the beach. It was pitch black. It was completely empty, just us, the sea, the dark sea, and the moon.
Yeah, the stars.
And I said to Chloe, I've been carrying something for this for a long time, and she thought I had something weighty, emotional to get off my chest.
I did, but I also, you know what? I thought, I feel like he has a gift for me, and I thought that you had picked up something from a store that I had seen and I didn't buy or something like that.
Classic me.
Yeah.
That's a good move, guys. By the way,
Yes.
for the listener right there, for you, the listener, it's a good move. Buying little gifts. So you know, that's how I do it. So then I got down on one knee and I proposed, and she questioned me, "Are you joking?" That was an interesting
Three
response.
times.
And then after the 3 questions, she said, "Well, I guess you should put it on then."
Well, you said, no, I'm not joking. I have a ring.
Oh, yeah.
But I couldn't see anything because it was
That's true. I forgot.
And he's like, no, I've got a ring. And so he took the iPhone out and then
with the torch
put
on the iPhone.
Shone the light on it.
And then I saw the ring and I was like, well, put it on.
Yeah. And when the light of the iPhone hit the beach, it was just like hit the diamond. The whole beach illuminated, and it was twinkling.
Jesus came down from the stars.
yeah, coasting along the water.
And Kin Ladu came from the ground.
Yeah. And blessed us. And that was it. You know, we went to a bar afterwards. Had some amazing.
Nearby.
Yeah, had some amazing tequila. Before we had the tequila, she said, "I just want to say, yes." I wasn't sure what she was going to say at that point, but then we realized she hadn't actually said yes.
Yeah, I realized I hadn't said yes, I do.
Yeah.
So I said, wait, yes, I do.
And
we had 3 shots each.
Yes, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Juan Blanco or something. Something nice. And that was it. Any more questions, Dave?
No.
Very good. Chloe?
I have to say that after that we came back to the Airbnb, and then I had to stay in the bathroom for a little bit, and Ahmed had laid a bunch of rose petals on the bed and lit up candles and everything. Yeah, he did it nicely.
Nicely.
And then what happened after that?
It's not for the microphone.
PG-16.
Yeah. And I'd actually carried like rose petals as well, all over Mexico. Yeah, because I had it in my bag. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm good at hiding stuff and keeping secrets. So
That's not what you want to tell your future wife.
A strong part of any relationship.
I remember one day going through his luggage looking for the suntan lotion. And I was like, babe, where's the... he's like, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Like ninja roll off the bed. I'll get it for you.
Yeah. What are you looking for?
Like a cat. What? I'll get it.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, that guy doesn't like me to check
so there's a lesson
stuff.
there, you know, for anyone planning to propose. They don't know. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Like
I had no clue.
Yeah, they got no idea. You have all the idea
Totally
if you're planning
clueless.
to propose because it's in your head. But they have none, and that's a very strong advantage.
No, it was beautiful, babe.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh.
I said to you, it was one of the most amazing trips of my life. Mexico. Yeah.
Beautiful. Dave, to close off, you haven't spoken much this episode.
Yeah, not much for me to say, I'm not getting engaged.
Knowingly.
What's your next step, Dave?
We talked about that in our previous episode 36.
Dave's on step 1, agreements.
I'm really refining the agreements part of the non-monogamy agreements.
Step 1, step 2, step 1 again.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the end of season 1. This is episode 37 of the many episodes we've done. We actually covered loads of things that we've covered in previous episodes, like serial dating is an episode about that we covered before, and like a whole bunch of other stuff. So if this is the first one you listen to, go back and listen to those episodes that look interesting to you, because there's a lot of great content ideas and guest speakers as well. But we'll be back in probably, the next couple of months with our season 2. We're going to get some pretty big dating, lifestyle and finance guests up on the episode. So we're putting that into action. So yeah, we're just going to take a little break, regroup, record loads of episodes, and then have some more great content for you. So we'll be seeing you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye, guys.